What are you doing here today? And what's your name?
I'm Sarah Von Harper. I'm the Executive Director here at James Monroe Highland. And this event is about, it's a Descendant Vision event, and it's about food traditions, food access, health, sustainability, and all of those pieces, how they fit together in our community.
That's why they told me to come
Yep,
here.
exactly.
So can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Absolutely.
Yes, okay.
So the core vision of the idea came from our public historian who is a descendant of Highland, and she wanted to bring together people to have a fall feast, which became the name of the event. And the fall feast then is being catered by a family of descendants who own a catering company. And as with all of our descendant events, we strive to make that free of charge, and so it is. And we brought in community partners throughout to talk about things like food justice, food access, production, tradition, and then we had a great partnership from Centera Martha Jefferson with a handful of different entities from Centera Martha Jefferson for health screenings and information. Our Council of Descendant Advisors is also tabling here information about their work in partnership with Highland. We have the Piedmont Master Gardeners here, who are a great source of education and activities in our community, and they have partnered with us this year in cultivating a portion of the Highland Vegetable Garden, and they donated 450 pounds and counting of produce to a local food bank. So all of these partners are here, and then you've just seen presentations by, that feels very close, by the students in
William Mary, that's right.
William and Mary's History to 11 class, taught by descendant Lisa Armstrong, and they have been exploring concepts of community around enslaved people here at Highland. So not presenting them in family units so much, but presenting them in other ways that we can imagine community. And this thematic approach has really brought out different ideas and encouraged us to imagine the experiences of the enslaved people here at Highland, who are ancestors to many of the people in the room.
Oh my goodness. So I am concentrating myself personally. I'm, older person, but this situation with the food insecurity is in the United States.
It's very timely right now to talk about food security and food justice.
Hello. What are you doing here today?
I am Lisa Armstrong. I'm the public historian here at Highland. I am here today with my students and with the Descendant Council and with the team at Highland and with the community to share exhibits about those who were enslaved here at Highland. A lot of the research that you see on the panels behind you were done by students from William and Mary as part of a History to 11 course on reconstructing heritage. They had the great opportunity to try to tell stories with using primary records in very limited detail. They've done a great job, and the bigger part of what's happening upstairs, which is the feast, where everyone will join in traditions that are common to Black traditional foodways and shares things that are very common in a Black holiday for Thanksgiving.
And today we're presenting on surviving separation. So one thing that connected all of our individuals, Mary Baker, Jim Harris, and Ralph, is that they were all separated from their families at a young age. And we think that this is something that's not talked about a lot in American history, is the fact that this is a traumatic experience. In Mary Baker's case, she was sold to Casabianca as a child in 1828. This was to pay off a debt in New Monroe deed. And in 1844, she's an adult, and she's resold again to pay off another debt, to pay off the mortgage for the Bellamy estate. But in this record, we find that Mary Baker, she's all grown up, and she has her own daughter, Caroline, and a grandson named Claiborne. And what's really interesting about these two is that after emancipation, Mary goes to live with her daughter, Caroline, and Caroline eventually purchases land in the 1880s, and her grandson purchases more land in Jefferson County, which is still where her descendants live today.
Yes, and I have the pleasure of researching Ralph. He was a young boy who was bequeathed to James Monroe in Spence Monroe's will, and he's listed alongside a belt and a saddle, which really was really like touching for me because it lists him as like property, which is something that we like talked about And he was also sold to Colonel Goody. He was listed in 2 letters from James Monroe and Joseph Jones. And he was torn away from any sense of public belonging that he may have felt. And Ralph, specifically when I was researching him, also didn't have many records, which was really tough and it was really challenging to work through. And Dr. Armstrong and I worked for a very long time to try to build his story for you also.
So I researched a couple who were enslaved at James Monroe's Oak Hill plantation, and they were in 1828 separated from that community and sent to the Casa Bianca plantation in Jefferson County, Florida. We know from an 1844 deed that they were enslaved at Casa Bianca, and based on an 1855 inventory, they had disappeared completely, and so we think that they were transferred to a nearby state. And actually on the 1855 inventory, we find that one of their children still remained at the Casa Bianca plantation, and they were separated from each other. But most interestingly, from my research, I found that after emancipation, Calypso Harris, who was Jim Harris's wife, she actually reunited with her son Anthony, who she was separated from previously.
Hi, I'm Mallory, and I researched Garrett Sanders.
Hi, I'm Emma, and I researched Bessie Sanders.
Hi, I'm Aaron, and I researched Eve McGuire. And as we were putting together this project, one of the common themes we had was the idea that slavery leads to different outcomes for everyone, and that it just was not a monolithic experience. And so we all have the same starting point for our people, which was at Highland under James Monroe. And the 3 of them, they worked different jobs. We believe that Eve was a domestic servant working in the house and such, whereas Betsy spun wool. And we don't know what Garrett did at Highland. We don't know this for certain, but we do know that after the 3 of them were sold to Casa Bianca plantation in 1828, Garrett started working as a blacksmith. It is likely that Eve and Betsy continued their careers, their jobs and things of that nature at Casa Bianca, because in the 1870 census, where we have Eve listed, she was noted as keeping house. Beyond this, with Betsy's records, she was mortgaged to Bellamy in 1844, and after 1860, however, when she was sold again to Tallahassee, the records go cold. We don't know exactly what happened to her. Garrett, though, he had what could be described as a moderately successful story after his emancipation, where he continued to work as a blacksmith and ended up amassing $800 worth of wealth. He was also registered to vote in 1867, identified as a radical Republican, which was the faction that was responsible for a lot of the Reconstruction efforts. And then Eve, though, she was still doing, her family was still doing farm work, plantation things. And we know that this type of plantation work continued all the way to at least 1911 from this picture. Eve's son was the one bringing in the income, and Eve was relying on him to live after emancipation. So everyone has a different story after emancipation, whether that is more of the same, only now free in the name of the law, doing something and amassing a lot of wealth, or someone for whom we don't really know much about afterward.
So, hello, my name's Jay.
And my name's Catherine.
And my name's Amaya.
So basically, we created a family tree because we wanted to highlight the big family that Hannah had. So Dick, after Peter Marks passed away, it was just his uncle that was coordinating the purchase of all these enslaved people. And originally, I think they wanted to buy the entire family together, but Dick had some other deal that he would have to work out his freedom. and we don't know why that was, but maybe he wanted to free his family eventually by gathering enough money. But he kind of doesn't have that much information on him. But my person, Hannah, was the mother. She was the cook, and there was a quote in one of the letters that described Hannah's wish for her children to stay together with her, and that was kind of like a little heartbreaking because some of her children didn't end up with her, and I can't imagine what that must have been like. But
yeah, my person was Spotswood, and Spotswood was purchased alongside with Charles to be with Hannah for Highland. Not much is known about Spotswood. There was 3 documents total, 2 of which are about him, and the 3rd is just referencing that he is in Highland, and he just kind of disappears from the historical record after 1802.
My person was Charles, and it was pretty much the same story as Spotswood. He was sold locally in Virginia, so there wasn't any more records beyond that of what happened. And the few records that we do have of him basically just states him as like a financial asset and where exactly he was in Highland. But other than that, that was really all we had on him.
But I think overall it was kind of difficult for us to like piece together all the information. There was this one very cryptic letter where it was talking about Hannah's spoon. What did you say? What did you say about the spoon? What did you assume that?
I thought, like, I didn't really understand what the phrasing of that letter was, but it's Hannah's spoon. And that spoon was going to be sold to James Madison. And that's all that's really mentioned.
Yeah, but basically we pieced together that it might have meant that Hannah was managing the kitchens because it's like referring to Hannah in the sale of a spoon. So we kind of used that. Charles and Spotswood, their occupations weren't really known, but in the same letter it was talking about how they needed more field hands, or his uncle was telling Monroe that he needed more field hands, but it was also talking about how those Spotswood that he was like a good carriage person, house servant, like other job descriptions that he could be used for, but it doesn't really say what he actually was. But yeah, the trail kind of goes cold, and we don't really know what happens to Hannah and Spotswood or the rest of her family. We were walking around, we saw Spotswood Jr. We don't know if that's related to Spotswood, but I don't know. We might, it could be. I mean, he might have had a happy ending, we don't know.
Thank you, Sarah. It's really a privilege to sit down with every one of you today to enjoy what we hope will be a wonderful feast. When Lisa came up with this idea and she called it the Fall Feast, that automatically brought me into it. So Thanksgiving is one of my favorite times of the year, and it's a time where we, not only come together to eat, but the most important thing I think we come together to do is just to be grateful for our families, for each other, and to honor our traditions that were passed down from our families and our ancestors. So I know you learned a lot downstairs, and periodically throughout the dinner, we're going to do a little bit of trivia just to give away some T-shirts that we have down in the day. And I want to thank some people first before we start dinner. First, I'd like to thank, our donors who made this day possible. There are several. I usually will start and then forget someone, so if I did, please forgive me. But I wanted to start with the African American Pastors Council, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the African American Pastors Council. And they were generous and donated to our event. And we partnered with them earlier this year to do a pilot project, a camp that Lisa and students led here, which was extremely successful, so we're really thankful for them. And we also are thankful for the Kaplan Foundation, who supports not only this event, but also support Descendants Day. And they have for the last 4 years, and I say 5 because our relationship started many, many years ago, before I was even born. However, their participation with this project started with the trip to Florida with the families that were sold from Highland to Florida. And they first sponsored that trip, and they've been sponsoring descendant-led projects ever since. So we're very grateful to the Kaplan Foundation, specifically Michael Kaplan and Kate Kaplan. We're also very grateful to the staff here at Highland. They work super hard. We come up with projects to do. They do a lot of the work. We couldn't do it without them. They're paying attention to the details and doing the things behind the scene that this is not my job. This is a passion. So, but they work here. They support everything we do. They give 110% and actually more than that. And we couldn't do it without them. So I'd like for everybody to just thank Sarah and her staff.
So, what are we doing here today, and who are you?
Gloria Saylor.
I'm sorry, you're eating. Sorry. Okay, go ahead, say it again.
Gloria Saylor.
And you are?
Jennifer Saylor Stacy.
And you are?
Hakeem Walker.
And you are?
Angel Saylor.
And what are we doing here today?
So we're here at James Monroe Highland with the Highland staff and community, and this is a descendant-led project that is centered around our food waste project.
And we, the guests, just experienced the best food in Charlottesville, and where have you been? And how come you don't have a restaurant by now? That's what I want to ask you right now. What is the problem?
Capital.
What do you mean? It's too much rent?
We need access to
It's stupid?
capital.
Yes.
And how come people with such a delicious, first of all, authentic, and I promise you, I'm from New York, I know the difference. It was like home cooking, and how many people did you cater to today? 100 people, and it was authentic.
Yeah.
Everything was delicious.
Everything homemade.
Can you tell me about how you're able to do that? Who wants to talk?
It came from our grandmother and our mother, Ada. We're the ones that taught us how to cook authentic food from scratch. We had, growing up, we lived in the country and we had a garden, so everything that we had was, at the time, organic. We knew what organic was.
Yeah.
But they instilled in us that, food really revolved around family. So.
Is that why you look so beautiful and healthy? So how are you related? Tell me the whole story. How did you decide to go and do this business? And then how did you become Sissy, tell me about your story too.
Sissy?
That's her nickname.
I'm the chair of the Descendant Advisory Council here, and I have been we've been a part of this since 2017, and we started building a relationship with James Monroe Highland. My grandfather's last name is Monroe, and we grew up about 11, maybe 10 miles from here or less, and every day we'd pass a sign that said Ashland, home of James Monroe. And I'd look at it as a child and think, my father's last name is Monroe.
Oh no!
Yeah, but we never asked, we never talked about it.
This is what I was just saying to your sister, because I'm like, how come you don't know about something on the downtown mall or in the... how does it become a secret? We're only population of 10 people here.
Well, when people want to keep a secret, they know how. And I think that I think slavery was just so painful that they just really didn't talk about it for the longest. I mean,
even your grandparents, nobody,
never
it's like my grandparents from Russia too. They didn't want us to learn the language.
Right. Wow. And I remember once my grandmother telling me about her grandmother, and she whispered to me and she said, "Johnny, I think she was a slave." And I think it's just the two of us. Why is she whispering? And I never asked. I just respected it, and that was my first memory of her even talking about it. You know.
Can I just give you a little thing about the Russian? He ran because he was Jewish. He ran from the Russian Nazis at the time to get on the boat to Ellis Island, but there was a process, right? But what you just said triggered me to think about what he said to me when I interviewed him in college. Because my parents, and he had 6 kids, my parents and my uncles and everybody never talked about it. They didn't even know what he went through and my grandmother went through. But I interviewed him for college because I took a Yiddish literature, I don't know, it was an elective, I don't know, but the stories, this is how I got to this, by the way. But I want to say to you is that people need to talk about their heritage, not to say that you have to come here and assimilate. Okay, I'm getting nervous. Okay, go ahead.
No, I think you're spot on, and that's one of the things that we were focused this year. We did Descendants Day back in June. And one of the things that we focused on is, are we passing the stories? And, my nephew, Raheem, he ended up engaged in a conversation with Sheila Arnold. She's an interpreter. She's a historic interpreter. And the two of them sat down and just talked through what it's, the generational differences, and, whether the stories are being passed down, what they mean, and we were asking the question, how we got over, are we over, and what are we doing to pass the stories to the next generation? Because our focus was on, when we sat down with Highland and the council sat down, one of the biggest things that we wanted to accomplish is just a succession process. And Raheem sits on the council because of that, because we want to make sure we have the next generation.
Wait a minute, this is Raheem?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. So wait a minute. You're only 10 years old too.
No. I wish.
So how do you become, you're all very passionate and also honest. And you know how I can tell personally if your food is good, right? That's the most authentic, right? Isn't that the most authentic?
Yeah.
So Raheem, tell me, seriously, you don't have to say your age, but you seem remarkable, brave. Whatever it is that you have inside, but what do you attribute that to? Your aunt? That's your aunt?
Mm-hmm.
Your aunt? Is that the one? Who did it? All your aunts?
Yeah.
So what do you do? We want the key to your successes.
I cook.
And how have you been, what's also lost in America is family, right? Because everybody's so transient. Most of you, I have cousins in Virginia, they stayed in Virginia, the kids went to college and now they're having grandbabies. You know what I'm saying? They're all in the same area. Do you think that has to do with you being authentic a lot?
I think so. I think we're very intentional of spending time together. So one of the things that we do now is every first Sunday we try to have brunch as a family to kind of have those conversations. Growing up, my aunt Jennifer is very intentional about having family dinners. So you'll see on TV people will go to different rooms and eat dinner in a different room, but she was very intentional of having dinner at the table as a family, as well as my other aunts as well. And I think, and my mom. And so I think one of the things that I think keeps us together is that we're very intentional about spending time together. Like if I tell them I gotta go out of town and I gotta miss a family event, I get an earful just because they want to spend that time with me, and I also enjoy the time because I mean one of the things that we don't have control over is our time. Like, you know, we don't know when our time is, whether or not tomorrow I might wake up, and so it's important to spend.
See, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wait, so what is your age?
I'm 28.
That's what I'm saying. It's crazy.
Two more.
How does he know? He's like is like an old soul, right?
Yeah.
And you have other little kids?
I don't have kids, but I have a bunch of cousins, and I also have a bunch of siblings.
And they're not like you, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean,
really?
Yeah, I mean, Avi, my cousin Avi is probably the only girl, so she's the only girl.
That's my girl.
Right, so she's the only girl, but I think that I would say my soul is old because I think I've been blessed to be able to have the time I've had with older people, and I think
and mom,
and I now stay with my nana.
Oh,
so
yay!
Being able to get that time with her because I feel like there was a period of time where there was a lot of time lost because I was in school, I was working, and so now being able to get that time back has been really, really joyful just because the stories, the laughs, the arguments that we might get.
See, is there any religion in this picture? Like,
anywhere?
Yes, religion.
Yes, absolutely. He was brought up in church.
Oh yeah.
So what are you? Are you all the same? Okay.
Baptist, for me, I prefer thinking through it as we're very spiritual people.
Yeah.
Yeah, our focus has never been on the pious side of religion. It's been mostly on the spiritual side of it. Really understanding faith and what that means. And really focused on the teachings of Christ and Christianity, not the religious practices.
Right.
But tend to focus on
rituals.
Yeah.
You understand sensitivity of your words.
Oh, yeah.
The importance of your actions.
Oh, yeah.
And that comes from like practice, even though it's not really a ritual, right? But it comes from like something very deep, and not all religions have that. Well, this has been fun.
Yes, it has.
Let me see. 14 minutes. We got another 10 minutes to talk.